Juan Michelini.
I'm Juan Michelini. I'm a developer. I work for GeneXus. Hi, I'm Mauro Canziani. I'm designer and developer, and I work in the R&D department of GeneXus. Today we are going to talk about a new workflow that we have developed for designers and developers. The talk should have been called "No More PDFs." We don't want any more PDFs. But before that, we'll share an experience we have with Mauro. We were asked to control a door with levers, so we signed a user experience, and this is what it's all about. Wrong lever. Why do we have that lever? Out of my way. That was a user experience that was negative. So let's go step by step. First, we have initial enthusiasm. She's going to the secret lab. Then action. Pull down the lever. Then the unexpected response. Something went wrong. What happens? There's frustration for the user. And the question then is, why do we have those levers? Why is it that Juan and myself devoted so much time, effort, and knowledge, and then we got to a wrong lever? The user falls into the trap. We think that user's experience is based on trust. The user trusts us. We can get into the car of someone we do not know. We can get into the house of someone we do not know. It all depends on an app. If the app fails, then there's a problem. And we believe that creating user experience today is difficult, and it's becoming more and more difficult. Many disciplines deal with users' experience. They do research. They use visual design. There's interaction. There are many disciplines, but today we want to focus on the user and information. It's becoming more and more difficult, but it was always difficult. As developer, I think that this makes sense. I've been working for a long time. I show it to the developer. He thinks it's correct. But let's imagine I admit my problems and I ask the designer to help me. In the traditional workshop, we get together, we do brainstorming, then we split up, and then the developer has to take the design, which comes on a PDF, a static format, and he has to include that into the software. There's no interaction. It's a dead, flat, beautiful, but I cannot touch it. It doesn't work. And I have to convert it into software. Me, as a developer, I have no idea about design, so I try to do the best. I adapt it. Mauro looks at it and he says, no, this is wrong. And we start going into details. We make changes. He says no, and so on. And it's never satisfactory. Now, Mauro, as designer, doesn't like this. He has no control. He has an ambition. He does something, but then he has to go through me to fix it. And in the end, it's not what he expected. So this is a problem of the industry. It's everywhere. We've tried to improve it by increasing the amount of information with more metadata. When the designer sends a PDF with details of the type of letter, the type of pixels, and they reduce the work of developers, we know exactly what we need to do. But there's a lot of work when we want to do better stereotypes so that the designer creates representation which is identical to the application, but it's never the application itself. So there are few players who have different views, who want the designer to communicate directly with the application without going through the customs represented by the developer. This is the point where the broken levers appear. That's right, the wrong lever appears. We have designers who know a lot, developers who know a lot, but the flow makes the wrong lever to be activated and the experience fails. We don't want any more PDFs. Airbnb is an organization that has tried to improve its design, and Mauro will tell you something. Airbnb is changing the way we face design. They grow very fast, and the design was being like an obstacle. So they have a visual language system. They encapsulate elements of their domain, like a house or the user's profile, into these elements that are reusable and accelerate the development and allow a larger team to work together. We followed the same line, and many other companies are doing the same. They try to encapsulate and keep the elements of their domain at a higher level. But we want to focus on a group that is local, AGESIC. AGESIC is a electronic government agency, and is dealing with a very difficult problem. There are many websites in the state made by different organizations, by different builders, and AGESIC wants them all to be alike. If I fill out a form with one institution and that is successful, the message should be the same as if it were presented by a different company. This is something similar to what Airbnb is doing. They are using reusable components. This is not PDF. This is HTML packages with JavaScript, and I only changed the message. This is very, very similar to what we were doing with GeneXus visual models. The idea behind GeneXus visual models is to improve the workflow so designers work directly on the application without a developer. We'll do this with stencils. We called it stencils. These are reusable components. Stencils means that we separate data from the way they are presented. I, as developer, worry about data. Mauro, designer, worries about design. Everything works. There's no going backwards and forwards. Just to show you, I'll share a demo. With AGESIC. We want to help them. They are dealing with a very difficult problem. We're going to create a stencil. So GeneXus is working with its KB. There's a dialogue. We want to add a dialogue that is success. That's a dialogue. That stencil, that reusable component. Let me explain what a stencil is. A stencil is an object that encapsulates something from my domain, in this case, a dialogue. It has a layout, a topic, colors, palette, and in some cases you may need an image or a photograph. And in future we want to go beyond that. We want to integrate animation, interaction, even plotties, which is something more than what Airbnb has created. Juan is now dealing with the creation of data for this dialogue. He's not interested in design. He's organizing the structure of data. I'm using the minimum data, and this is reusable. I have to say which properties can be modified. In this case, the text, the caption will be added as a parameter. The text of the message is another. The text of the link and the URL. And if we go to the next tab, we'll see the 4 properties. We can give them a different name. In the workflow between us, this is something we could do together. Or he could start and then he sends it to me and I design it. There are many ways in which we can interact initially. To make it neat, we add a description and a steam shot. This helps because as stencils are reusable and shareable, we can easily locate it and reuse it or share it with somebody else. So, this is a product. We have a form. It's ready. And I have a new stencils bar. I look for GeneXus, and that's a gallery of stencils. You will find all stencils that belong to you. In the future, you may see public stencils, market stencils. There are other GeneXus in stencils. In the version 2, we will release all the molecules that GeneXus has designed its portals. So to generate new state portals, we will grab and drag some of that, and it's going to be very easy for developers. In the gallery, we have other stencils. I don't know, maybe some are being designed. I can use them, and I don't care. And we want one message of a form. We go into the details. We look at the image, the description. We look at the properties that can be changed. We check that that is what we are looking for. And we put them in a web panel along with other things. And we want to adapt this. And we call it validated product. And here we add business logic. So far, it had no business logic. When you share it with someone, you do not drag business logic, only the visual aspects. That's an advantage. As a developer, Juan can share the stencil with somebody else without sharing the business logic, only the KB. And to show that this is reusable, I love this. I make a design and I can use it over and over again. So let me show you. I'll go to the web panel. I'll follow the GeneXus completed form. You probably have thousands of questions. Maybe one of them, can I put a stencil inside a stencil? Yes, you can. It can be as complex as you want. I'll go back to properties. This is the stencil I'm going to include. I only change the data that bother me. That would be a second use of the same stencil. I put F5, and let's cross our fingers, see if it works. So we have user, sorry, it's a product, completed form, both with the data, which I want as developer, but there's no design. As a developer, I think it's okay, but the designer will not like it. So he says it's ready. He believes it's ready. He's satisfied. His part is ready. This is the dialogue that we are trying to represent. Now, I become responsible from now on. I want this dialogue to look as it should. So I will try to avoid it looking like a stencil. I will do something. GeneXus visual model suggests that the work of the designer is done on the web without knowing GeneXus, without needing GeneXus license. So we could use a module within GeneXus M that's going to be on the web in future. I love this part because I can delegate. I forget it's being designed. That gives me time to do something else. Mauro is a magician. I could never understand what he does as a designer. He creates tables, he changes classes. Classes use the GeneXus standard issues. And now we're going to use a language which is based on SAS. I am assigning this to classic objects, but in future I will do this on the web with CCS. All the design adjustments will be very accurate. I love that. It's going to be easy to do that. I will be able to send a link, and any designer used to CCS will be helping me. Okay, imagine that I did this on the web. I save, and Juan gets a notification that the design is ready. It has been modified. I tap F5. And here, the design changed. It's just like the one in GeneXus. I did nothing. And for Mauro, this is great because the design is just as he envisioned it. So it hasn't to go back and forth, and there's no pixel issue here. We think that designers will feel at home. So, as we said, we want them to adjust, integrate, and maintain the design inside the project, the KB, in their own field. So there will be a module as part of GeneXus M. It's going to be called Module Web, and Juan will share a link with me, and I will be able to work on the web and with a SAS language, which is very similar to CCS. And this will allow me to adjust, maintain, and integrate GeneXus designs in my own field. It has another advantage. I'll be able to maintain consistency or visual consistency throughout the project, throughout the organization, and help others, and create larger design teams for larger projects. And it's going to be easy because it's all handled through the web without having to install, learning, or getting licenses. That's very important because if GeneXus changes in the future and wants another success message, we only change one stencil component and we upgrade the whole application. Commonly, you are asked to get the KB because they liked your application, but in fact what they want is the screen. So with these new commissioned models, we will be able to easily share the screens of our application so that colleagues or ourselves can use that again. And if the designers want to continue, they can get in touch with the authors, and we create an ecosystem. We are also protecting the authorship of the designer. With this new workflow, we are protecting knowledge, protecting the knowledge of the designer so he can convey his message, protecting the application, being consistent. And in GeneXus, we like to protect knowledge. And we think that by protecting knowledge, we will get to applications that are future-proof.
So we are still at the first stages of this process, which has a lot of potential in our opinion. And your support, your experience, designers and developers alike, if you give us feedback, it would be much appreciated. We are going to open a channel in the Slack for GeneXus Tero, specific for this development. You can make comments, and anything you can contribute to our work will be fundamental. Yes, especially if you are designers, we will much appreciate information on this ecosystem. So thank you very much, and I'll see you at Slack.